Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Before I start today's show, I have exciting news for founders, CEOs, and franchise brand presidents. Join me January 14th through the 16th, 2025 in Tampa for the first ever Emerging Franchise Brands live event, an exclusive opportunity designed just for you. It's my blueprint for success at every stage of franchising, one I wish I'd had, packed with real-world solutions and strategies to solve your challenges today and prepare for those you'll face tomorrow. Space is limited, so head over to emergingfranchisebrands.com to secure your spot today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the co-founder of Qamaria Yemeni Coffee Company, Hatem Aleidaroos. Hatem, how are you today?
Very well, Frank. Thank you. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on your show.
Hatem, did I pronounce everything
very
okay?
Well. No practice. You did very well.
I did. Well, yeah, my first try. Hatem, it's great to have you on the show. We're both laughing because, guys, you have no idea how many takes we've done. Anyway, back to the show. So, Hatem, let's talk about your company and co-founding Qamaria Coffee. How did this come to be?
So, yeah, Yemeni coffee in general, the history of the Yemeni coffee is that Yemen people were the first people to actually invent the coffee drink. There's a big debate on whether coffee tree was first grown in Ethiopia or in Yemen. But there's no debate that the Yemeni people actually made the drink what it is. They actually roasted it and they made it into a drink. But as far as our company, we started first wholesaling. We used to wholesale to the USA market. We used to wholesale to the European market. For me, as a Yemeni, I never even knew the history of coffee, and then the richness of history of coffee we have in Yemen. Because I was, in USA since I was 5 years old. I would go back a couple months. School would end. We would go back to Yemen for a month and a half, come back 2 days before school starts and go shopping for our clothes. So there was no really, and I'm from a village that doesn't grow coffee, so it wasn't that coffee. But I seen on YouTube a Yemeni that was working with Blue Bar, European company, and they were wholesaling Yemeni coffee. They were selling cup of coffee for $15. I said, wow, that's crazy. We looked into it and we said, okay, we have access to this coffee, so we started wholesaling and I was doing very well wholesaling. I didn't understand the business, to be honest with you. I was already in the wholesale business at that time. Before I used to manage businesses. I worked in the airport. I think there isn't a job that I didn't work in the airport, from restaurants to loading planes to, doing the flights and managing the parking lots. And there was so much that I did in the airport. So with that experience over the years, I just came to a thing where I said, I'm done being behind a counter, because I was never satisfied. Every job that I took within 6 months, I was looking, okay, I need to get a promotion. I'm bored of what I'm doing. I got it. It's daily routine. The first 6 months would be the best 6 months. And then after that, a day would feel like 3 months, because I already knew everything,
Of course.
And it got to the point, it would be the same thing. I would come in at 5:30 in the morning. There's a security guard at our front building. And he always told me, top of the morning. That top of the morning was I wish he would say good morning today, because it was just so repetitive,
Right. It was like living in Groundhog Day.
I said, you know what? I'm gonna stop being behind the counter. I'm just gonna start wholesaling. So I started going to the conventions in China, getting stuff from there, selling them wholesale to the USA market, getting stuff from India, clothes, fabrics. So I was really enjoying the wholesale side of things. It was a little bit less headache. You just receive, you know, and then you sell. So there wasn't too much of a team that I needed. I could do it all by myself. And now it was very, on my time basis. So when it came to the Yemeni coffee side, it's a perfect plug, wholesale. I just didn't understand how vast the coffee business is. They were ordering and I was happy. So they would, start off 100 kilos, then tons, and then we need 2 tons and 3 tons. And, Yemen only has one season. So it was like sometimes they would order and I'm like, I can't, season's over. But it was always good problems that we're seeing happen in the coffee world. So I started really selling California, to Canada, to New York, to big roasters that, are huge wholesalers, and once I started really getting the ball rolling, I had a small warehouse. I started understanding the brokerage side of things and what I need to do to get everything going and smooth, and started, implementing a system in Yemen where, I had families take care of certain stuff to get it shipped out faster. There was some stuff that the American market wanted. They like because it's espresso machines in Yemen. There's no concept of espresso machine. That everything's from scratch. So they would say, look, we love your coffee. We just need it to be separated by size. So the coffee world, you have, size 16 to size 9. If you can imagine, they're not too far out, but the 16 and the 9, big bean and a very, very tiny bean. So they would say, look, separate them by size. Okay. So I would call, people back home, and hey, the farmers would say, that's none of our business. Okay. The guy that's working in the factory for me that, separates the skins of the coffee. And he'll be like, no, we're not doing that. We've been doing this for 150 years this way. This is the way it's going to be done. I said, you don't understand. I need it for this money. He said, doesn't make sense to me. So we're going to do it. So it was that kind of huge culture shock, They just couldn't fathom why you want to separate sizes because of the whole espresso. So once I finally got that rolling, we had to, get a couple machines for them. And I got my first container was 20 tons. This was my first container going to USA. First time I'm actually going to put it in a warehouse. I'm going to sell about 30% of it. And then the rest I have for when they order. And then Corona, in other words. And I just got back from him. So I was at a warehouse, container came, and I didn't get tangled up before the whole thing. I was just sitting in the warehouse, green coffee. So I used to call the roasters. I just wanted to understand why they weren't buying as much. I understand Corona, happening. So there are two things.
Sure.
Look, we buy from you and we roast it. And when we roast it, we sell it in individual packages, which we give to the coffee shops. They give us some, space on their counter. And they were very good. They were trying to teach me more about the business than, I was even asking for. But they used to buy it from me for $12 a pound. They would roast it, and then they would sell it for $40 to the coffee shops, and the coffee shops would sell it for $50. So they would do both to them. So that was a big portion of their business. And then they would also sell to the coffee shops as roasted coffee, and the coffee shops would have a special, every Friday we have Yemeni coffee, and they would sell it for $10 a cup. So the roasters, started explaining to me that, look, we're just middlemen. You sell it to us, and then we said, okay, so I got to learn how to roast because I got to get this coffee going somehow. So I'm going to make my own bags. And that's what you do.
Right. You're like, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong business here.
Yep. Because, when they were telling me about roasting, I said, okay, so just from roasting in itself, it's $8. And roasting is you're just roasting. So there's a big, the person that was selling wholesale, one of them, he told me, look, 95% of the coffee shops in USA, they don't roast in-house. So this small thing, because it costs, 80 to 90,000 for a roaster. Most coffee shops, financially, they won't buy it. So they need the roaster. And this is pretty much what the average price is. It was $4 a pound just to roast. And then they would mark up, another $4 to $5. So he was telling me it doesn't matter because it only, a couple dollars only makes about 3 cents difference in each cup for them. So it
Okay.
was like being really open. So I learned how to roast. So I went to Minnesota into this school called Mill City Roasters, right at the peak of like everything starting to open back up. They taught me how to roast. I went to a espresso training course in Michigan. A great guy named Nick. He taught me how to do latte designs and stuff like that. It was an experience in itself. And everything just became, okay, I got the roaster. I bought a used roaster. Everything was closing at that time, and nobody was like really reopening. So
Of
everything
course.
was free, free, but basically free. So the roasters, people are just closing down the roastery. They're just trying to move the product. So I bought a used roaster for like 25,000. I bought a latte machine, have it in house. They cost like 16. I got it for like 3,000. I started roasting, started making my own bags, and I started selling online. I was doing very well. I was selling for $25 online. And then I said, it's just not moving. It's not moving. 1 pound of coffee. I got 42,000 pounds.
Right.
I need a lot of back. I'm going to open a coffee shop. So I had my brother at the time, he was working at a pharmacy. I told him, just let's open this coffee shop, see where it goes. The worst that can happen is you're going to make the same thing you're making at the pharmacy. It's the worst that can happen. So nobody's going to be coming knocking on our door for a bill. 95% of the menu is from one product, which is coffee. And we just got to deal with the water and the sugar. That's what it came down to. So, we're like, all right. So we started having my mom teach us the Yemeni version of the coffee drinks. And, her thing was there's no measurements. So that was the thing. She would tell her, just need the measurements. She's like, no, there's no measurements. Then you got to sprinkle. So we started.
Right. That's so typical, right? Is that everybody they do it by hand, mom, grandma. It's like, oh no, I just make it. What do you mean you just make it?
What?
There's got to be a recipe. Well, a little of this, little of that. I do about this. I kind of eyeball it. It's like, no, I want to replicate
she would even tell me,
this.
like, you start doing measurements, it's not going to taste as good.
Gosh,
She
of
taught us a
course.
lot from the Yemeni version, which is like, brewing it from scratch. Because the idea was, a Yemeni traditional side and then the espresso side, kind of merging both. Because, for us, we never drank coffee at Starbucks. Never drank at these commercial places. Anybody that came from back home, we would tell them to bring coffee. My mom had this big pan and she would kind of roast the coffee. And we never knew like how bad the American market was drinking cheap coffee. It was bad.
Wow.
It was bad. And we started like going to do marketing and see the prices so we can be at least at the same price. We used to taste our coffee and it tasted like water, we were like, oh. So we started, realizing that in order to, change the flavor of the drink, which is kind of either very bitter or watery, they'll get like caramel. We'll get pumps of vanilla, pumps. So we don't usually spices in Yemen. So we have cardamom, have ginger, we'll have cinnamon, kind of give us that flavor. Every village in Yemen makes a certain coffee drink in their own way, So we started, making the drinks based on each city. And then we started doing the espresso and what we were, taught from the espresso machine. And we opened our doors. And it was just very eye-opening. We opened in Commerce, Michigan. So from Dearborn, it's about an hour and a half. No Arabic people there. We did that kind of purpose. One of the, was we're looking for a split. But Dearborn is just very saturated. And all our families there and all our cousins, we know if we open there, we're going to feel like we have a business, but it's really just people that, are supporting us and love us. So Commerce was like, I never heard of Commerce. And I've been in Michigan my whole life. So we were driving, looking for shops in that area. And when me and my brother ended up, getting hungry, we went grab a bite to eat. And next door was a Big B's next to this restaurant. And it was closed. So we were talking to it was a Coney Island that was there, but I like upscale Coney Island. And they said, yeah, it was, lady, she had it here. She was a principal, retired, put in the Big B's, COVID. So give us her number. We reached out to her and she said, yeah, you can take the place. Just give me, 15,000 and you could take the whole place and everything in it. And I won't be able to open it. So,
wow.
Deal. So it was like we found that in an accident. So we ended up, all we switched out was literally the espresso machine because they had the automatic, fully automatic, which really doesn't have the sense of specialty coffee. When we took it over, we did our, remodeling, painting. It's a whole different experience when you have your whole family kind of working in it. You know, once it's not like you hire a construction company and then you just get the keys, and it's a whole different experience when you're working on every inch of a place and then you finally complete it. Everything that's here, somebody put some, effort into it. Family, brother, sister, anything like that. So we opened our doors and people were so, blown away by the quality of the coffee that it blew us away. Really, it's that good of a coffee. Then we started looking at the profit margins. And they were just beautiful, So we're like, okay, now we have something in our hands. So, we've having a lot of people coming and asking us to partner at that time. And, I don't know if there was like a trend happening all over the world of just people opening coffee shops. And then me personally, in the back of my mind, I used to say, how many cups am I going to sell? And paying for how many cups? But when you look at the profit margins, you don't need to sell much. There's 400 or 500%. And margins in the coffee business. So, we started to have people coming to us to partner. At that time financially, we weren't too stable. We were just starting. Everything kind of like fell into our laps. So I said, it's not going to work. Partnerships are not going to work. We'll try the franchise route. And I've always been into franchising because I used to work at Hungry Howie's and Quiznos and all that in the airport. So I used to always see like people just they just come because it's branding. So I started reaching out to franchisors, franchise companies that do the paperwork, and some of them are just crazy. 150,000, and we want 1% of revenue, royalties. It's crazy. I kept looking, and I found a company in Florida, franchise creator, great guy, great company. Went there, I met them, and this guy was just like, you're crazy. You only got one shop, and you want a franchise. You gotta have like 4 or 5 shops, 6 shops. He said, yeah, but I got a lot of people that want to open. Just give me the legal paperwork that I need to be franchised. Trust me. Oh, it was a big bill for him. It was a big bill. And in the back of my mind, I was already counting how many franchisees I have to pay that bill. So I told him, look, you're gonna get everything done for me. I'm gonna sign these people and pay. And he was just so fond of, like, you're just a risk taker. I'm gonna take the risk with you. I said, okay. So he helped me out. We got our paperwork. We signed the franchisees, and then from there, learning on the franchise world.
Wow,
what a learning curve.
Wow, what a story, Hatem. I love your story, and so many people that have been in your shoes where they had opportunity didn't seize it because of fear. So many times they was thought about what can go wrong and they don't move forward. And as I continue to hear your story, you see the opportunity, you have a vision, and you keep going for it. And you keep going for it. And there's a huge difference between the people that succeed and fail. And often, number one is you have a vision, but number two, you don't quit. You just kept going. And people could say, oh, well, you got lucky. You got lucky during COVID, and you got lucky that these roasters were willing to teach you. And you got lucky that, you had this opportunity to start you had the shop and everything set up for you. But you continue to I want to say take advantage, but you continue to seize the moment and seize those opportunities and kept going forward. And you are a risk taker, but in order to succeed in any business, you've got to be willing to take the risk. I love the fact that you spoke to this franchise consultant, and even he said, you're kind of crazy that you got one shop and that you probably shouldn't do this yet. And you're like, no, we're doing this. And I've got so many people who want to open a location, and it worked.
Yeah, you should see, like, his thing was every time I signed somebody, they were also the, middleman. So they would, he said, look, if I get anybody to sign from my end, I want, 10,000 of the franchise fee, which was at 30 at that time. I said, hey, that's fine. As long as you don't take no royalties. He said, no, we don't do that. And my fancy way,
Absolutely. That's great
yeah,
advice,
I
by
would
the
go
way.
back
Great
because
advice.
he would do the legal paperwork. And it was like every month I'm going back. I got one person. I got two people. He would just like blown away. It was like, it was that kind of thing where I just started, earlier, even before the coffee world, like entrepreneurship and business in itself. Like when you believe in something, there's only so many people you can ask for advice, and they're only going to give you advice based on their experience, you know, and you just take, their experience, but really you just got to follow with what you're capable of because they're only giving you the information based on their experience, and maybe they had a whole different experience. And, like I can only give my experience to certain people.
Tim, let's talk about you as a franchisor now, because now the game has changed. You're no longer in the coffee business. You are now in the franchising business, and you have, as I love to say, you have one job, and that is to make franchisees successful and hopefully fulfilled and love what they do. We do know that's a challenge. What was life for you now as this franchisor and no longer just an entrepreneur with your one
Yeah,
shop?
so that was, like I said, it was such an eye opener, such a huge learning curve because you're getting into it thinking it's copy and paste, you know, just you're gonna do what I did and I teach her, and it's totally different. I always like to, you're managing people. That's what the franchise is me. You're just
Right.
managing people. The business is there, materials there, the training is there, everything there. You're just managing personalities and managing people. That's really what it came down to. But it was such a learning curve for me because the people that were franchising with me were family, friends, people that I grew up with, and it's your community first that knows you, starts, believing in you and stuff like that. So they were learning with me as I was learning the whole franchise concept, you know? So they would say, hey, look,
Right.
what would happen if this 1, 2, 3 happens? And I'm like, I never thought about that. Yes. So I'll make sure we get to that. But it's still, for me, I felt like the whole wholesale concept and franchising, literally selling them products, that I was very good at, making sure that everything's on time, making sure the wholesale is running properly. What was new in learning was, learning the whole franchise concept from the legal perspective, learning it from branding
Sure.
perspective, revenue perspective, and just how big this thing can go and how easy it is to like really be consumed in like this celebrity feeling you kind of get, I know, but it was like a hard thing for me to
It's
control
true.
because I love playing next to the fire. I love like being there. I don't like touching the fire, but I like being right around it because I just always had that thing in my mind. Like when people go right, I like going left, but I'm not going to go too much. So it was the kind of thing where, you
Right.
know, when you're a franchisor, it's a very tough thing to play with because you got people that dominate.
You well, you can't play with fire as a franchisor as you could when you were just, and I say just an entrepreneur running your own business, because now you're responsible for people and there's this compliance. That's why franchising is so difficult for folks, because we go in as entrepreneurs. The reason why most of us franchise our company, it's because we want to expand our business. But suddenly we have a new level of responsibility as a franchisor. Now we're responsible for people that we weren't responsible for before we started franchising. We could open our own company owned locations, but of course, as we know, we typically can't open as many locations if we just do it with our own money. And that's the beauty of franchising. But Tim, before we get too far along on the story, I'm so curious. You're the right person to ask this. And that is, do you think it is easier or more difficult to have friends and family as your first franchisees? Because typically in franchising, that is who your first franchisees are. It's friends, family, referrals. But is it easier or difficult to have friends and family as franchise owners versus just straight up, business owner that loves the opportunity and wants to be part
I
of the
think for
brand?
me, it was easier. And it's really because, at that time, I don't know if it was just the whole COVID thing, but people were just having this entrepreneurial spirit. They sat home and they were thinking deeply about their life. And then they just came out of the house like, I want to do something with my life. So it was that kind of thing. And then also, you know, the family friends concept, it could go left, you know, but as long as people are making money in franchise world, friends or not friends, they're happy, you know, and that was the kind of thing that was happening with us. The franchisees,
absolutely,
we were too greedy, you know, in the beginning, you know, there's a lot of discounts we gave. And then also I loved the experience more than what it's transitioned into now. It was way more intimate, you know. I would go there and I'd see their process and I would see their construction and I would just, you know, my brother would go there and we'd give them the tip. Like it was so much more intimate, you know, with people we knew and, you know, but at the same time, family, friends, all they expect more, you know, more than what was, you know, dealt cards, you know, so it's that kind of balance, you know, but it was just a different thing because they wanted you to be successful. They know they feel like they're a big part of, you know, your success and stuff like that, which is very good. But then also once the business starts expanding, it's like, okay, we gotta separate now. I can't be as intimate as I was with you guys because we got 20 other things going on, you know, so they start feeling like, what, you're forgetting about us. No, that was the plan. Plan was we, you know, start, but I got, you know, different states to go to, different people to go to. And, you know, some of them was just like, we want to expand with you. Can't, you know, it's a financial thing. There's only so much you can handle yourself. There's only so much I could handle myself. So it was like, when I started to know, that became a little thing, you know, and then just, and then back on, man, I was like, at some point I'm going to have to say no, you know, but it was a respectful no, you know, and I would kind of sit and show them like, look, are you going to control shop in Michigan and shop in Texas, flying back home? You can't, you know, and it was like that kind of thing where, you know, they understood, but I could have went back. But I love that experience because, you know, there's something to every entrepreneur at some point, the money side just doesn't, even if it's not a lot of money, you know, it's not like, you know, you get to a certain point, you're making so much money, you don't care about the money no more. Even if it's a little bit of money, there's this thing that takes over where it's like, I'm onto something, you know, like it's not about money, you know, it's about helping people out. You know, you're getting this kind of love from your community, or you're becoming a leader, and people love to lead. You know, there's certain people that just, they love to lead and they start having this, or, you know, I would say, to giving people, to helping people to, you know, you start, it's a whole different table now.
Right. Yeah, I would say, Hatem, being around franchisors for as long as I have, you know, 20 plus years, you know, everybody has the different motivation on why they franchised or what like excites them, what gets them up out of bed in the morning and loves being a franchisor. For me, money was not first at all. I loved the impact I could make. And quite honestly, I'm super competitive. I wanted to win more than anything else. I wanted to help our franchisees win. We wanted to be the market leader. And that's what excited me. And for me, I don't know, anytime I ever tried to do anything for like making money as the priority, it never worked out for me. Yeah. And if I led with passion, led with my heart and wanted to flat out win, I could do anything and I could endure challenges and pain that we all confronted with in franchising when you it's win first and help your franchisees win. But I can see that I think it was great that you pointed out that your role as a franchisor changed because most of the folks that are listening to our podcast that are emerging founders, when they're starting out, what they're not realizing maybe is when you first franchise, your role as that co-founder or president or CEO, it's going to dramatically change once you start awarding or selling franchises, that you're not going to be able to have that same personal touch that you had early on, that you have great responsibility. It's almost like, you know, you could be so hands-on and you could have so much interaction with franchisees when you have single-digit number of franchise owners, but you start getting in the neighborhood, you have 25 franchises open now. You know, you're only one person. You have a team, of course, but your responsibility gets much grander. And in order to keep the keep the flywheel moving, right? It requires a lot more of you to have a different set of priorities, right? What would you say are your highest priorities now as a co-founder than it was early on? How is that different?
So I think, you know, a CEO or anybody that's kind of becoming the leader of a franchise or a franchise, it becomes a franchisor. If you don't have a game plan from the beginning of why are you really in this, you know, like, you know, we say win, but win what? You know what I mean? For me, it's always being like entrepreneur. Like you said, it's not the money thing, but it's like being an entrepreneur, you know? So it was, for me, winning means opening more shops. For me, winning means, you know, people making money, because in return, if they're making money, I'm selling more franchises. It just got to a thing where, okay, my main priority here is to make sure that everything's afloat. The wholesale is the biggest, you know, engine of the place. But if I could show these franchisee members
right
to people when they sit with me, like in the beginning, I was almost a beggar, you know, like after 4 or 5 shops, after the whole family phase went away and it started being like random people calling, I'm there selling it. You know, I used to tell them, like, we used to, you know, email. It would be like in Chicago, and they'll be like, okay, we'll call you. I said, don't call me. Just, I'll meet you in Chicago. I want to meet you, you know? So it was like, I want to go there and I want to sell them this concept and I want to take them to different coffee shops. We're not in Chicago yet, but I want to take them and show them that I want them to come to Michigan and taste our coffee. And it was that kind of thing where I'm really going out there selling it and, you know, making sure that they believe in this concept. After a while, you know, it becomes a thing where, look, the franchises are opening. This is how much money they're making. You know, this is a very good start for us. To, you know, when we're on the table, this is a very good start. Now we'll do all the rest of the stuff. So it became like, you know, you're getting the yes as soon as they see the numbers. A lot of more numbers-driven franchisees, you know. But I always lean more towards owner operators, always, and I love that. So we would have people that would want to just invest and they don't have the money. I just tell them, listen, I don't have the managing capability. I just can't do it. You know, so it became a thing now where position I'm at, it's really just making smart decisions. You know, that's what it comes down to. You know, as a franchisor, you're just making smart decisions now. Now there's no more room for, you know, making decisions that are not filtered properly. Not, you know, you're just looking to them properly, because one decision now could make a huge difference. You know, so it's becoming that thing where it's control inventory, which was a big portion. And then I also had to, you know, make sure that the franchisees understood what they're getting themselves into. You know, because before it was like, let's go, we're supporting each other. Let's do it. You're gonna make. But now it's like franchisees I never met, and I'm trying to sell them this idea, you know, and it's like they just can't see what I've been doing for 4 or 5 years. You know, like our first 4 years, I wasn't making no money. You know, I was making profit, but I was putting it back into the company. But, you know, I had, you know, some friends that I would borrow money for just for my living expenses. It was that kind of thing where it's like, you just can't show them this stuff. Like, trust me, if you just hang on and you just do believe in yourself and you're trying to sell them the idea. So, you know, for me as a franchisor, the learning curve is just crazy. There's so much stuff. Sometimes I just forget. I forget the stuff because there's so much stuff coming at one time. Like, you're just putting out fires, you know? And, you know, for us, it was like a good thing. Fires were good. They were good problems we were having. Like, you know, we didn't have a good managing, marketing team. We didn't have the best software. But it was good problems to have. You solve them, you solve the good things. So it just fires. You're basically waking up every day and you're thinking fires. And you just turn them out. And then you with your other, put on your other.
You're a first responder. That's the job of an emerging franchisor. You're a first responder because you don't have everything in. You think you have your systems and processes in place, but it's still a learning curve. I love to tell people all the time. It's like, I learned a lot. Obviously, you learn everything through your mistakes. The goal is try not to make the same mistake twice. You said about trying to make smart decisions. We make the best decisions with the information that we have. And unfortunately, we don't always have franchisees that have that same entrepreneurial spirit that we have, or that, that same burning desire to, be successful. And not everybody has the same aspirations. Our goal is, though, to help them achieve their goals and making sure that, they're profitable. But we're dealing with a lot of different personalities. And as you said earlier, once you went from the friends and family franchise owner to now people who you didn't know, that's a game changer, because now you're dealing with a completely different set of expectations. I'd love to hear you talk more about that. How does the expectation change when you're dealing with an entrepreneur, a franchisee who you don't know that comes into the system?
Yeah, so I think the most thing that I could point out when it comes to that question is really just more structural. They're looking for structure. So the questions are much the same. With family and friends it's different, but franchisees that you don't know, they kind of have an idea of franchising, or they've been in business. So they're asking questions that it doesn't work like that. Like, I don't know the answers to these stuff. I can only give you the answers that I have for these 6 locations that I have in Michigan. It would be like, have you done marketing analysis in California, the Bay Area? Like, oh, I haven't. I can't go to every city and do marketing analysis. But I would tell them, I would believe in you that as a franchisee, I'll come out there, and also, but I would believe that the franchisee would understand their market. I'll give you the concept and I'll help you understand the concept, and then we could work on that together. But it was so much questions that were so formal, and I was like, I don't know. I can't tell you I know and I don't know. So it was that kind of thing. And I used to think it would be the bad thing. And it would ended up being a good thing. Honesty, transparency in the franchise world, it's a big deal. So when I tell them I don't know, they would actually appreciate it more. And I started realizing
absolutely,
you could tell them you're gonna make this much, and if they make less than that, they might not be as happy, because you over exaggerate it. You over exaggerate the concept, so I would I would really, when I meet them, I just be as honest as I tell them, look, I don't even understand the franchising concept. I'm new to it. You're also new to it. For people that haven't opened franchisees, we're going to learn it together. But I would just, that was the thing that was helping most, is I would just tell them, look, I don't understand this question you're asking. I haven't really gone to it, so I don't understand it. I'll do my best to learn about it, but we could either learn it together, or I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know. So it was that kind of transition, more structural than numbers. Numbers was a thing, It's okay, it's how much are we making? How much are we going to make it? I was like, I don't know how much you're going to make. I know the net profit, I know my gross margins and I know my net profit. So it's that little barrier where it's people that haven't franchised. They have a sense of business, not like the people in the beginning with family and friends where they were just more happy about. It's that middle where it's they haven't franchised, they have a little business sense, and some of them are just very, I don't know how to put it in a nice way, but they act like they know what they're talking about and they don't know. But you don't realize that until you stuff later on. So it would be those kind of meetings, where it's a lot more structural and just more numbers. And then also it's you want to tell them, trust me, they're not like your family and friends, it's not that kind of thing. So it was more, you're just selling it.
No, it's different. Well, Hatem, I think you hit the nail on the head that as you grow as a franchisor, it will become a lot more structural, and the expectations will also change. I think your superpower, number one, is your entrepreneurial spirit. First of all, your passion, your ability to be transparent with your franchisees, no matter who it is, I think is absolutely ideal. You never want that to change. But I think that you're going to find, as you grow your franchise chain, you're going to find that the type of person that's probably going to want to come aboard and be part of your brand, they're going to have different wants and needs, and their expectations of structure is going to be it's just going to raise the bar. as you continue to grow. So I'd like to kind of hear from you about, who do you think right now is your ideal franchise owner? What are some of the traits too that they need in order to be successful with your brand in particular?
It's a good question, Frank, because it's the second phase that we're getting into, and it's franchising that I love.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the people that want to do multi-franchisees from the beginning, Like I see their financials, doesn't make sense to me. But I love that. I love that they're saying, look, if we get a chance, if we're successful, we want to do multiple locations. And I love that, because that already tells me something about the person, So all of our franchisees in the states that we're in, all of them are multiple franchisees. Because once we hear that from a franchisee, to us, like I always tell them, it's an easier transition. We already have a relationship with you. And really, first franchisee, they're the ones that know where to open the second location, because they get the customer feedback. So it's like, I start now pushing them. We have a 3-mile radius in our contract, but I'll do a year exclusive for you, for the whole state, because I want you to take that 6 months, 8 months to build a place. And then within 3 months, you should know where to open your second location. I'll give you that, So it becomes a thing where, I make sure that I put them in place, and I'm, trusting them, as much as they trust me. And I push their control spirit. Like, think about one location. You got a good team. It's you and your wife, and you got a team to do multiple locations. The coffee business, it's not like a restaurant business. It's easy to expand. It's not as hard as the restaurant business, where you need 100 items just to make one burger. You need 10 different items. The coffee business is very simple concept. So I try to push them to, think about 2-3 shops. Don't think about one. So, for us, the franchise, even when I have the interviews with the franchisees, they'll tell me, so what are your conditions for a franchisee? Tell them, I don't really have any. Who would want to spend, 400,000 or 500,000 and not be successful? As long as the person is financially capable, and I see that they have this right away when they tell me, I'm working corporate and I just want to change, I love that. I'd had sometimes my partners would do something, they're like, no, it's a little risky. People go. I said, no, you got to understand, this is the best kind of people to have, because they've already accumulated so much experience, like I did when I was working, and they just don't want to be corporate people. They don't want the 9-to-5 job. So you're going to get out of them way more, than somebody that's probably been in the business world and a little more comfortable and stuff like that. They're going to take it to another level, So it's that kind of thing for me as a franchisee. It's just really that, I want to do something, and I want to do something in my life for my family, something to be a part of something. So that for me, that's what makes a franchisee, catch my eye.
Awesome. What's the investment range for one store, and what's the typical size, the footprint of a location?
So right now, the minimum is 2,500 square feet. And the good thing about being a franchisor is really you're in control of how much you want to expand this operation. So if you're not greedy, you have potential to have hundreds of shops, So right now, our franchisees, it's costing them anywhere from $380,000 to $410,000 all in, because what we do is, you want the equipment, you want the furniture, we give them the suppliers. We buy direct from them. We're not marking up anything in that market. Construction-wise, we send you a blueprint. You hire your own contractor, because, just contractors, but they're different. They could take 10 projects on. They don't care if you're paying. So we try to make sure that they hire their own contractors, so that way they're there. Because we could just call a third party and it'll just cost more expensive. So, and then I always love the franchisee being part of the project as it's going, and just, for me, that's how I put a lot more, battery in my operation. Because we're like at 380 to 410,000 to open. Inventories about 20,000, because it's a coffee shop. So 90% of the menu is coffee. Yeah. So we try to make sure that this number stays 2,500 square feet, and this number stays. We have some franchisees that they're at 3,000 square feet. Because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it just becomes, you don't even have enough space, even 3,000 square feet. It just became
Wow.
concept where, for us, we don't understand the concept of just going to a coffee shop, taking a coffee and leaving. We always, you eat, you have a nice lunch with your family, and then you go have your cup of coffee or your cup of tea and talk about whatever you want to talk about, So it was like you indulge in that. That's like a moment where whoever you're sitting with, you're sharing this, moment. So we never understood how people could just go get a coffee and leave. So it was cafe. They got to get their day going. So, our concept was, no, we want you to come in. We want you to sit. We want you to indulge in your coffee. And in return, most likely you're going to pick up a piece of cake or one of our pastries or stuff like that. So, just when you have an idea and you have something you want to do, the business comes. You don't got to worry about the business, and I've always realized that. I don't shy away from saying, like, we want you to stay because you're going to spend more money. That's the second part of it. But really, the first part is want you to come and enjoy yourself and sit, because chill, you need a break. You're just going. Sit down and enjoy your coffee at least 10, 15 minutes, Have a chat with somebody you enjoy chatting.
Yeah. You want it to be an experience.
Yeah.
And not just grab the coffee and go. How big is the food part of the business compared to beverage?
So it's about 30% of the business. We have a limited menu.
Wow. Okay.
We don't have breakfast. We don't have lunch. We don't have sandwiches. We have pastries, and we have a couple Yemeni dishes, like a honeycomb. It's our main seller. It's honeycomb bread. Looks like an actual honeycomb for the bees, and it has cream cheese inside of it. So it comes like a pizza slice, but it could break up like into little balls. So we have, what I always tell the franchisees, look, pastry-wise, food-wise, I'd rather have the 4 best cakes than have 20. I'd rather have the best croissant than have 15 different versions of croissants, because people love quality, and I've seen it like now with the American market. Like, when you start like getting into the franchise world, you're always looking at, for me, it becoming a thing. Like, I'm driving, I'm always looking for places for lease, even though I'm not a franchise, I just have it in my mind. If I see a place for lease, take a picture or something like that. It just becomes a muscle memory you have. So when I go into businesses or restaurants or stuff like that, I remember when I have a good quality dinner or lunch or stuff like that. So now I'm looking at the American market. There's no more restaurant with 200 pages. You're flipping through seafood and meat, burgers and spaghetti. There's no more of that. Now it's, you come to this chicken spot, and this chicken has best chicken. They got 3 chicken sandwiches. They got the best 3 chicken sandwiches. They don't sell burgers. So now quality side starting to come back to the American market.
Hatem, how do you evaluate and select which are the right markets for you to expand to?
So really, we don't. Coffee for us is a universal product. For us, it's really just, so I always tell franchisees, you're in a niche market. You can open anywhere as long as it's residential, because people like to come out. There's a lot of people, we underestimate how much the family, business side is in America. There's a lot of people that want to spend time with their wife and their kids, and they don't want to go to bars. They want to go to hookah, lounges. They just want to go somewhere where they don't have to spend $150, at a restaurant, and do it maybe 2 times a week. So, for us, we tell the franchisee, have enough space, have enough parking. And most of our customers, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they stay till 11, 12 a.m. So make sure that they could walk to the parking lot. They're in a safe neighborhood. That's pretty much what it's been for me, even as an entrepreneur. If I have 75% of what I need, I'll deal with the other 25%. I'll fix that 25%, whatever comes in. I just need it. I can't wait until it's 99%, because it just doesn't make sense to, having. And I've always, like I said, I've always liked playing with the fire to a certain extent, because there's a different feeling when you're getting close to, like, I wouldn't say failing, but it's getting, you're just growing and expanding, and it's before you know it, funds aren't looking what they look like, and, you know, things are just time sensitive. Like, I know I just signed 3 people. They're about to pay their franchise fee, but I got orders that I have to make. Now it's becoming where I just got 2 containers from China. We burnt through 1. I still have 1, but I got to make the other order for 2. So it's just
right.
I love that. I love that, where it's like, it gets me going. But when things are going too well, I don't like that, That means something is wrong.
Well,
when things are constantly good problems, I love that. And the coffee world has been that kind of thing where it just doesn't get boring. Franchising, they can make capsules, sell wholesale. So it's so much doors and so much avenues that I just love being all over the place when it comes to that stuff.
Nice. Well, one thing about business, it's never boring, and franchising on top of that is even less boring. There's always excitement. There's always something lurking around the corner. So I could promise you that you're not going to be bored anytime soon. Tim, if someone was interested in learning more about your brand and joining you, how can they get more information?
So on our website, QamariaCoffee.com, we have a link for franchising. Fill out an application, and then they pass it down to me, and then I always have an interview with the franchisee. Okay. Instagram also, same thing. You could always do that link. And it's pretty much, just going into our website and understanding the business, or you don't even have to understand it. Just take a shot. I used to call companies that had no business calling, when it came to the wholesale world, that they would say, you need X amount, millions in assets. No, I'd still call them, it was always that kind of thing. So, I want that from franchisees to just call. You never know. You never know what opportunity is waiting. You never know what stage of the company we're at. You never know where to go when you make that call.
All right, fair enough. Tim, last question I got for you. So I always finish every podcast with the franchise tip jar, because the franchise community is so generous with giving advice. So I would ask if you can give advice. If there was an entrepreneur that was looking to franchise their company, before they jump in and franchise their business, what piece of advice would you give them?
I think, my best piece of advice would be that you have a whole world. Franchising, if it's limited to just your city or your state or the country you're in, you look at it as there's a whole world, and you could go anywhere in this world. And if you have a successful operation and a successful business plan, it could be implemented anywhere, so I always make sure that I give deals. When I feel like my gut feeling tells me this, do it, I do it. I'll deal with the repercussions later. If my gut feeling tells me, I believe in the experience that I've accumulated, I know that the worst that can happen, I might get wounded, but I won't be out. That kind of motivation you need as a franchisor. And then also just look at it like you could be anywhere, and never say no to an opportunity. I get people that call me from different countries, and I go, and I get there and it doesn't work out. Oh, well, it's okay. At the end of the day, somebody else, so it's that kind of thing where, I know there's a lot of people that say, it's always good to say no to opportunities that you're not ready for. I always believed in it, the opposite, at least at minimum, I'm going to get some type of experience. I might not get the what I wanted, but I'm going to get some type of experience, whether it's informational, business, maybe get burned. There's nothing wrong with getting burned. It's a very good thing, because now you know what to look out for. So those type of things would be what I would tell a franchisor. Have a huge, objectives are good, but keep that goal, of all over.
Sure.
Objectives, you reach them, but that goal is what's, going to keep you going, because I keep pushing that post, that goal post back. Every time I'm getting closer to my goal, I'm farther, so it could keep me going.
Well, Hatem, your daredevil approach to entrepreneurship has gotten you this far. How can I doubt you, man? You've defied the odds so many times. You seize the moment. You've had things thrown at you, and you just keep going. So I don't think anybody should doubt you. I think you have an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. I think that your franchise journey is only going to get more interesting. Of course, you continue to grow. And look, man, I wish you all the best and continued success with your company. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Frank, I got a question for you though.
Shoot.
What made you do like podcasting? And that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question, from your first franchisee or first person that you ever had on the show, to now, how has the experience been?
My gosh. Well, first of all, I loved when I ran my business. I loved the time period of emerging and growing and all those challenges like you're facing right now. That time period for me was the most exciting. It was exhilarating. It was exciting. It was scary. But I look fondly back on that time. And that's what really motivated me to do this podcast, is to talk to fellow founders, entrepreneurs like you that are going through this incredible time frame. And I think this is a time period that as founders, we are never, ever going to forget. It's what makes and breaks our brand. And I don't know, for me, it was the time period that while I quote unquote maybe had more success when I hit my 100th franchise opening, I was having my most fun when we were small and we were nimble and we were dealing with challenges. And so that's what motivated me to do this podcast, is to feel that entrepreneurial spirit and talk to people like you. And really how the podcast has changed from the first one to now. I got Anthony here. Anthony, you probably could attest to this. Could it be any more different?
Oh yeah.
It's completely different. First of all, I still don't know what I'm doing. I will be the first one to tell you, but I'm having the time of my life doing this. And I had the time of my life doing it from the very beginning. I think I didn't know what to expect when I started doing the podcast. I didn't know who I was going to get on the show, what were the questions I was even going to ask them, what was even going to come up. But I'm finding more and more common threads of the passion and entrepreneurship. And I can kind of decipher, I think, who is going to become royalty self-sufficient, who's going to get to that 100th location by talking to enough of the founders, because it is rare. 84% of all franchisors never get to 100 locations. And we don't even know how many of those 16% that get to 100 franchises, we don't even know how many of those get to royalty self-sufficient that even can stay open without selling another franchise. But I start to see enough common threads with founders, and I can kind of figure out, who's going to be the winners versus, who's going to struggle with it. And it's an exciting industry, and I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Feeling like
thank you for
franchisee,
asking.
was it that feeling where it's like, or you have like 200 viewers, but you're like, this feels good. We're about to do something, and it's only like 200.
It does feel good. It does feel good. I've never gotten caught up on the number of people that have watched or listened to the show. Probably the number one thing that we did that I would suggest anybody that's interested in getting into podcasting is go ahead and record about your first 24 episodes without elevating it, to YouTube or to any of the podcast platforms. Because by you doing that, you're getting some momentum and you're not getting caught up in the numbers. You have no idea how many people are viewing it or listening, and you start to get some momentum behind you. And to me, that was a value, that was an added benefit. I had no idea, but our goal was we wanted to record a whole bunch of episodes before we kind of posted them. And so by that time, after we had done 24 episodes, Anthony, was by the time we started finally posting them, we weren't going to quit. Quitting was not even an option. We were just going to keep going. And I think that's the thing. You want to make an impact with people, but don't get caught up in the numbers of people that are watching or listening. Have fun, man.
Zero expectations. And I told you that from the beginning. Have zero expectations, because what will come will come.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I have no expectations. I'm just having a blast. And I think good things happen when you're having fun, because as you pointed out earlier, there's so many opportunities. There's so many franchises that you can buy or businesses we can get into. At the very least, do something you're having a great time doing. And if you're not having fun doing something anymore, It's time to move on and do something else. There are way too many opportunities out there, and life is way too short to be doing something that no longer makes you happy. And so I'm having a great time doing this, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Like when I first seen it on YouTube, I watched every episode. Like, you know, when I watch like the series, I might watch like the whole thing. It was like that, you know. It was like, next one. And it was a lot of information. You know, I never heard of what do you call the IFA, or where all the franchisees meet up, or franchisors meet up.
The IFA. Podcast. Yeah.
You know, so there was, you know, I read the comments and I'll be like, there's so much information in this person's, you know, channel. How are franchisees not, you know? So I would share with everybody. I'd share with my franchisees. I'd share with people I know. So there's nothing better than, you know, getting information, and, you know, and you're a great interviewer, and I appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you, Hatem. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for watching and listening. And that's what lights me up, man. It's just doing this. I'm having a great time. If I could make a little bit of an impact on fellow founders and franchisors like you, I did my job. And that's what excites me.
Stay close to the fire.
So thank you.
Stay close to the fire.
I will stay close to the fire. I might not get as close as you. You're going to get a little closer to the fire than I will. I got close to the fire at times. Trust me, I touched the fire. It don't feel good, but I will stay close to the fire, but I'll let you get a little closer.
Man, I appreciate you.
All right, Hatem, thank you so much for being on the show. Stay well.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.